All right, good morning.
Good morning to you. It's almost lunchtime for me here.
It is 10:18 in the morning for me here. I've already done some running around all morning and now I'm back here for a bit and then back out to do some more running around and then bartending tonight.
Sounds like a great day.
The average Sunday, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it's nice to talk to you face to face for the first time. We've been talking on the Twitters, the X for a while, but
Yes.
yes, it's nice to connect. But I think you had some topics you wanted to talk about.
Right. Because I remember last time I think you made a post about the struggle between like doing the work yourself, the cash flows, and potentially hiring an additional employee. So I found that struggle really interesting, and it's a struggle that you see at all steps. Like when you're a startup, you are obviously you, and if you have partners in terms of founding, you're pretty much doing all the time and doing absolutely as much as you can. Then maybe you get into your first employee, but then by that point, it affects your cash flow, so you are doing other stuff, and there's always that like constant struggle with the growth. And I found that it would probably be an interesting discussion instead of just like two, 3 words in an exchange on a tweet.
For sure. Yeah, this is definitely one of the biggest things I've struggled with cuz yeah, if you're a follower of me at all, you know I just work as many hours as I possibly can. And that's basically been what I've done for the last 10 years, I guess. Where like I only hired my first employee at my startup in year like maybe 3.5 years, and it was like when I physically couldn't do like I couldn't be in two places at once anymore. I was already working 18 hours a day, but I just like, yeah, there were two things on a Saturday, and I'm like, oh, like, this is where I hit the wall. So that was like the first time I hired somebody. Um, and now, yeah, like between the three businesses that I have, most of my employees are doing stuff not that I can't or wouldn't want to do, mostly doing stuff that like I just physically cannot be in two places at once. So I'm like, I'm never sitting at home while my employees are working. It's always like I'm off doing something else.
Yeah,
But yeah, you definitely gotta balance because like especially with my startup, like even 8 years in, um, is still has no money. I still gotta like figure
yeah.
out how to pay bills at the end of the month. Um,
I feel you there.
yeah, so that's always been yeah, that's the struggle, right? Because like even if you're paying
Yeah,
minimum wage, whatever that is right now, $16 an hour or whatever, it's like that's for a full time employee, that's $2,000-3,000 a month, gone right out of your, and then you gotta pay all the. Don't get me started
rent,
on the
equipment, and everything. Yeah,
yeah the you gotta match EI and match 1.5 times CPP and payroll tax and so like paying an employee $20 an hour is actually paying an employee like $27 an hour because you got to pay all this
right.
other things.
That's something a lot of people actually don't get because they see, especially they see like their tax slips,
Yeah.
and they're like, okay, I'm being paid like $20 an hour. But what they don't see is that on their slips, actually, there's a lot of stuff deducted and that the business actually pays for. So, like you said, like $20 an hour is probably costing the business closer to 27.
Yeah, and I like when I started because I never did my payroll at my startup. My business partner always did that. So when I bought my second business, I was doing the payroll, and the first time I did it, I like there's a picture of me like just like this at my computer, like looking at the payroll stuff because I'm like, wait a second. Yeah, because like whatever the employee pays in to, I forget which one's EI and which one's CPP, but one of them, whatever they pay in, you have to match, and then the other one, whatever they pay in, you have to match plus 50%.
Right.
And then it's like, I don't know about you, but I don't have a great faith in the CPP system. Like I'm 29
No.
now, and I'm pretty sure by the time I'm 65, like we won't even be able to claim it the same way that you can
Well,
now.
for example, I know a bit more about like the American program, so probably the Canadian is very similar. On the American side, what we've been hearing lately is that it's pretty much all like in bonds or whatever, just government, pure government debt and getting returns of like 3 to 4% yearly. So, I mean, you cannot expect CPP to, if it's structured in a very similar way, which I don't doubt it is, I don't think it's sustainable over the long term.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to claim any of this money, but I have to like pay into it and pay into it for all my millennial and Gen Z employees, and it's like literally just throwing money at the wall. But yeah, I mean labor's expensive. That's not an argument. I mean, whether or not the labor, it's nice to employ people. It's nice to be able to have people pay their bills with the money that you give them. But like, my entire career, my employees have like made more money than I have.
Yeah.
And
And I'm pretty sure because I also hear from other uh, entrepreneurs as well that when you try to get stuff like a car or a house, it's generally a lot easier for your employees than yourself.
yeah, yes, definitely. They say how many years of employment income do you have? And you say, well, technically I have 10 years. And they go, okay, well, technically
Right.
you're not an employee. So, um,
Yes.
well, I'm even having trouble. Like, I can't even get bank loans, like bank operating lines and stuff with like a business that's profiting. They won't even give me debt
Right.
because like my personal credit score, it's just,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
They won't
And
give you money until you don't need it anymore. And then they'll give you money.
yeah. And for example, like me, my 100% of my income for 2024 is dividends.
Hmm.
So I have absolutely no salary. So if I were to turn around to the bank and be like, "Hey, I'd like to buy this car on a loan," they'd be like, "What was your income last year?" "Oh yeah, zero." "Okay. You sure we can lend to you?"
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess like the systems are set up in a way because like the average person is dumb and bad with money, so
Yeah.
that the people that are like, "Oh, I don't show a lot of money on the books, but I actually am doing it in an intelligent way," they're like, "Sure you are." like, you know. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not ideal. But like are you in
Yeah.
a like so you have your business
Right.
on the like
It's so my very first business is IT consulting.
okay.
So I'm a computer whiz or whatever you want to call it, geek, basement dweller, or whatever. And basically, I started working jobs and everything, and then I discovered the world of consulting, where people, instead of being paid employee benefits and everything, you jump from big company to big company, help them with their projects or problems, and you're basically being paid an hourly rate. So you're basically selling your time, which obviously is not the most scalable of businesses, but it's a good business in the sense that like you're selling expertise at a decent value and you don't have big costs. So in terms of that, making profits and then obviously deriving other business lines from that is a way to go. I mostly went into investing afterwards. So one of the things I'm probably going to do is restructure into an investment structure and an operating structure for the consulting. And then I think one of the biggest advices I received in my first year of consulting was another consultant telling me, "Hey, all the money you get, don't take out more than 50%." And that was the best advice I could have gotten because, like you said, there's all those other costs, right? So when you pay yourself a salary out of the business, well, you have to account for all those deductions that the business needs to do as well, on top of, your own income tax. And then there's obviously the taxes on the profits and everything else. So you end up paying a lot. So that advice was one of the best advices I could have received. And lately, the past year, I think we're about to celebrate, like in June, our first year of operation. I started building an actual, with two partners, an actual physical product business. And we're starting like from the ground zero. So there was no product, there was no branding, so we built everything. And yeah, it's really not the same ball game.
No, I wouldn't expect it to be.
No.
Yeah, it's I've done both now where I've like built a brand from the ground up and then I've like bought a established brand. And it's definitely easier to buy an established brand. But
100%.
yeah, but I think it is definitely more satisfying in the long run to start something from completely scratch. Like from looking back, like having an idea to now where I am, it's like creating every step along the way is definitely very satisfying, especially because like I always recommend entrepreneurs that if they're just in it for the money, probably just go get a six-figure job and don't be an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. So that kind of satisfaction I think is more important than the money at the end of the day. Um, so yeah, that's yeah, or
Well,
maybe that's cope
you know,
because I don't
pe
make any money.
people see like successful entrepreneurs, especially people out of Silicon Valley, and sometimes they see them like, hey, within a year they're already like out and making like $1 billion or whatever. The thing is, it's probably not their first business. They've already sold a business. They have all the connections because all those people like kind of grew up together as well, right? So they all grew up in the business world together and they already have those connections. But if you're starting from scratch and you don't know people, like it's unrealistic to think that within like your first decade of operation you're going to get anywhere near that $1 billion.
Yeah, and like you know, statistically, I think they say like you won't even make a profit until like year 3 or 5
Yeah.
or something like that, right? So it's yeah, the things you see in the news are definitely the outliers to the rules. I think like um the median business owner I think makes like $50,000 a year or something like that.
And we even see like a lot like the big businesses and the numbers of the big businesses. But when you look at small business, whether it's even like people that build something for themselves or buy a business like you did as well, or even just franchise, like if you own like a McDonald's franchise, they ask something like $1 million in assets before they franchise you to make sure that you can sustain yourself through those years. And you know, you look at the numbers, at the gross numbers, basically the raw income that a restaurant makes, and you're like, ooh, over $1 million of income like on a year. But when you take like all the food, the rent, the royalties, your employees, at the end of the day, like the person basically bought themselves a super glorified 100 to $200,000 job
Yeah,
being the manager or owner of that restaurant.
yeah.
So it's, people see big numbers, but then when you break down a business, like there isn't always that much money.
Yeah, and I think that's just like, you know, that's you're not going to be able to educate the public on the nuances of
Right.
operating cost of a business, you know what I mean? Because like I find that in my life too, where I'm like, you know, I like to think I'm pretty transparent in how close I am to bankruptcy at any given point in my life, and I get a lot of people that are like, "Well, you have a business, so you must be rich," kind of thing. Like they see that I have a building and employees and stuff like that, and it's like, "Oh, you must be rich." It's like,
Well,
nope.
appearances, right?
Yeah, but it's like, and it's funny because like I don't even try to put that on. I don't pretend like I am rich, but people still think that about me. So then people that are trying to put it on, that's why they get
Yeah.
away with it because it's like if they are trying to pretend they're rich, then it's like people just take
Right.
them at face value,
Buy a,
right?
buy a BMW or an equivalent, live in a nice house or whatever, even if you're renting it, and hey, you're rich.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how big the mortgage is or how many, you know, how much credit
Yeah.
card debt you have, how many times you've declared bankruptcy, but that no one
Yeah.
sees that part of it.
Mm. I really like there's a meme I saw once where it's like this guy in a suit, like super richly appearing, like with a Ferrari and everything, and just going over to a homeless and being like, you know what? You are richer than me. Because he actually had so much debt that like the homeless guy that's at like net zero
Yeah, yeah,
actually had more than him.
yeah. Yeah, I think Donald Trump said something similar when he was like going bankrupt from all his way before the presidency when he was the failed Trump hotel and Trump vodka and Trump casino and all that stuff.
Yeah,
He was saying like, "Oh yeah, I have $1 billion of real estate debt," and the homeless guy on the corner is has a higher net worth than I do.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, very interesting.
yeah.
But are you like the is the reason why you're interested about employees and whatnot is because that's kind of in your mind for your
Uh,
businesses?
well, yeah, it is. And if you look at it, for example, if we need, again, it's a question of like, you know, especially my partners and myself, we all have our obligations. We're at different parts. I have like, the first business that's cash flowing a lot more than the second one, obviously. And so my time during the day is mostly to run that one. Whereas like the soap business that we build, um, we're actually, we're trying to do things. We're doing markets and everything. We're working like all our evenings, all our weekends on it. And, but let's say we want to open a store or something for people to come see us and everything. Well, that means that somebody needs to be there during the day. But during the day, we have our other obligations that bring in our actual cash flows. So it's in the stage where it's like, well, okay, but what if we have to bring an employee? But if you have to bring an employee, your whole cost structure completely changes then from if you're giving your business your own time, right?
Yeah, significantly.
Yeah.
Um, Not only just the money obligations, but also like just the I don't know if I want to say moral obligations, but like like someone's relying on you for an income. All of a sudden, it changes the dynamic between you and your business, where it's like, oh,
Right.
my first IT business is doing well, so I want to take a vacation for a month. The soap
Right.
business can just kind of whatever. We just won't do it for a month. Doesn't matter. But then it's like if you have people relying on you for a salary, all of a sudden you
Exactly.
can't take that month anymore because the other
Can't take
business
that
needs to
month.
run.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something
Yeah.
I don't know if struggled with is the right word, but like I've really kind of fallen into where now it's like I employ 7 people and they all more or less rely on me for income. Like 5 out of 7, this is their only income. So now all of a sudden it's like if I fail, if I give up, if I take time off, now it's not only me and my business partner that's being affected, it's all these other people and their families and their and
Right.
it's that's one of
And
the burdens of entrepreneurship.
I'm guessing like for people that are listening to us talking, they're like, okay, but the burden, but what do you really have to do? Like, there's always problems that come up for a business. There's always a challenge. There's always an emergency to deal with. So it's like if you want to time out from that, you can't really take that time out because you have those people depending on you. And if you take that time out and something goes wrong, uh, you know, when it's just you, okay, your business suffer, you suffer, whatever. But when you have people depending on you, then it's a totally different ballgame because you're responsible for their own suffering, and you don't want them to suffer. You want them to have a good life.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I won't put a number on it because it's different for every industry in different regions, but like until you're a relatively big business, like a medium-sized business, you're not going to be able to hire a manager that can do all the figure out all the problems. Like at the end of the day, if any of my businesses run into like issues where my employees have a question or they need a decision made, the owner needs to be the person that does that.
Yeah,
And it's gonna, you can't just hire a manager that can have all the executive decisions and make all the make all that day one, right? Like that doesn't work like that. You
yeah,
need to kind of build the business before you can have that. So like even if you want to take a vacation or whatever, you still need to be accessible as a business owner for a long time at least, because a lot of employees there's a reason why they're employees and not business owners. Like, because being a business owner sucks and they don't want to do it. They just want to show up and do their job and get paid for it. And you being like, I'm going to be unaccessible, you need to figure it out. I think that's unfair to your employees. Like, the reason why you're in the position you are is because you want or capable or whatever of making those kind of harder decisions or problem solving. And the people you pay, unless that's explicitly part of the agreement, they don't want to have to do that. Like, and they shouldn't
Right.
have to. So you need to
And
be,
yeah,
you can't be on a beach in the Bahamas without your phone on, because you need to be answering questions.
right. And we make this choice of taking those high pressure questions, dealing with the unknown. Your employee, what they chose when they applied is they chose the job you described, right?
Yeah.
So you can't ask them to take decisions that are outside of what you asked them because it's unfair to them.
Yeah.
Like, sure, employees will go out of their way. Like if you create a good business, if they feel for the mission of the business and they like the business, they'll do things and they'll help you out with stuff. But there's still a lot of stuff that's above their pay grade and that they won't be comfortable in taking those decisions or helping you. And because, for example, like, hey, if you have, like, let's say at your bar, you have this disgruntled customer or something happens, hey, your barman can choose, hey, you know what? Chill, it's cool. Here's a free drink, whatever. That's like one small decision that like your barman can make to, calm a certain situation that may occur. But, at the end of the day, bigger decisions will require you to step in. Like, I don't have an example for that one, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like, yeah, if the example I was thinking of just then was like, if somebody calls and they're like, you know, we're switching you off of your supplier for this thing, and it's like,
Right.
they can't make that jump decision to be like, yeah, we're gonna switch our supply chain of how we buy whatever cups, name a thing, I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and that's kind of the role that you take as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. Like, you consent to that. Um,
Yeah.
and by the time you, like, the equivalent position, if you're paying it as like a manager, I think it is a relatively expensive job, because the higher pressure, the more you get paid. That's how it should work for the most part.
Right.
So, if you're paying somebody, like, how big does your business have to be that you can pay a manager $80,000 a year or more, before that makes sense, before you shouldn't just be able to do it? Like, I think that
Right.
too many people get into entrepreneurship because they think that they can, oh, I'll just run it full time for a year and then I can hire a manager and then I can step away and go on a beach
or
and all
or
that.
think that they can get that high salary and it's like, hey, I built it, I got it easy, let's go. Other people will take care of it.
Yeah.
Doesn't really happen.
No. And it's like, the what you get paid is exactly the value that you bring to the market, right? And if you're on a beach in the Bahamas, you're not bringing any value to the market. So, like, I don't know. It's
Right.
it's always been my thing where, like, I don't ask my employees to do anything that I wouldn't do myself.
Mm.
And that's kind of like, I guess, my leadership style is, I like to learn every part of the business, and I like to be probably the best at every part of the business before I hire for it.
Right. And I also like understanding whatever the part of the job that you're actually hiring someone for. So like having done it, you don't need to be the best at it, but at least understand like the pressures of it, what the role is, what the kind of stuff you can bump into. Uh, I find that's important because it gives you perspective of the reality of the employee as well.
Yeah, you're not asking them to do anything that is not possible, or
Right.
giving them unrealistic timelines, or, you got to do
Right.
this for this cost or whatever. And that's just like, that's just not how that works.
Mm.
But I've,
And
in my industry, for my startup in the liquor industry, there I've known, a couple breweries that, like, the owner, just comes in once every 2 weeks and just comes in and goes like, no, stop doing it like that, do this, and like whatever, and like doesn't actually know anything, messes everything up,
yeah,
and then leaves, and just like that whole day's a wash for them. And then the employees, like, pick it back up together, do it the other way, and then he comes in 2 weeks later and does the same thing and messes it all up, and just because has this idea of like I know better, basically.
Right.
Yeah, which I think is not a
Right.
good way to go.
It's a horrible way. You're hiring people for what they know and everything, and uh, in terms of leadership, I find one of the best ways to deal with something is actually being the last to express your opinion, because the moment you express your own opinion, everybody will just fall in line, right? They'll avoid contradicting you, because a lot of people, some people will contradict you or whatever, but a lot of people will fall in line and it's like, okay, I'm not going to disagree with the boss, right? And that's really a reality because you have to remember, like, you're paying their salary. You're not their friend. So, they're not going to be as transparent with you either. So when you want to know the real things and everything, like, empower them to say the things they need to say, empower them to have their opinion. So if you have a problem, don't come up with the solution right away. Let them express the problem as a problem and let them come up with the solutions.
I have a
Right.
good friend that owns a lawn care and snow removal company,
Mhm.
and he started practicing that. I think it's like from a book. I don't know where it's from, but let us know in the comments if you this sounds familiar. Where anytime an employee calls and asks for like I have this problem, what should I do, kind of thing. If it's like a basic simple thing, what he does is goes, hey, I'm just on the other line. I'll call you back in 15 minutes.
Right.
Calls them back in 15 minutes, and he said 99 out of 100 times they're like, oh, I figured it out.
Mhm.
Because like a lot of times the employee is like trying to get your approval,
Right.
and
Because they
they're
want to make sure they did the right thing, right? That
yeah,
you agree with.
yeah, exactly. Where it's like, you should, as a boss, I think, just like trust your employees to make good decisions. And if they don't, like, you shouldn't be hiring people. If you have to make dumb rules at your company because people keep messing up, then you're probably hiring the wrong people, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's in the whole process of being tough and selective is when you're selecting them, when you're doing your interviews, you might want to ride with them for the first week and see how they operate, or have someone that's senior in your company so that they're more comfortable in their themselves, ride with them, and then make your decision if they're a fit. And it's also important to even ask the person, the employee, like, hey, how do you feel you fit in? Like, purely, like, do you like it here? Because sometimes they themselves might not like it, and even if they're like a really good fit for you, for them it might not be a good fit, and that's okay. They can, you know it needs to be a fit both ways.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because if it's not a fit their way, then they're just gonna half-ass it and not give you enough effort just to get a paycheck.
Right.
And if it's not a fit the other way, then it's like you're putting up with yeah, it's just like yeah, it's
Yeah.
a two-way street for sure. It's been interesting. Like my one business, I hire, like, I'm the oldest on the team. I hire a lot of like millennials and Gen Zs and students and whatnot. And then on my other companies, I have like the youngest employee is like 63. I have a lot of like I have a
Right.
72-year-old in my production facility that has been working in the industry for 50 years. Like, um,
So
yeah.
how do you deal with the challenge of, like, because at some point you saying that, like, most of your workforce in one of your businesses like in the 60s, how do you feel you're going to be able to renew your employees to have like a younger workforce so that your business can continue operating as it is?
Yeah, that's definitely something on my mind. That's so my other two businesses, both in the rubber stamp and engraving industry. The one I've only owned since 2023, and then the other one I've only owned since a month ago.
Right.
So it hasn't come up yet where
Okay.
they either retire or die of a heart attack or whatever old people do. Um,
Mhm.
So, but that is something I've been thinking about. It's like the last couple of years, I've just been trying to get us on like a good foundation. So I am learning everything. I know how to do basically every product from start to finish. I know how to do all the sales part of it. And I work there like 4 days a week
Mm.
in that business. So I am like, if like everyone just dropped dead tomorrow, which I mean could happen with your Gen Zs as well, right? People get hit by buses and
Right.
stuff. It's not impossible. Um, if everyone were to drop dead tomorrow, heaven forbid, my partner and I could run the business. Whether or not it'd be as efficiently, probably not, but it's like it wouldn't go out of business and the customers wouldn't suffer on quality. They might have to wait a few more days for stuff, but it's like it is what it is. But that is something I'm deeply starting to think about is not I don't want to say not becoming too reliant, but like yeah, building a system where if one employee leaves, it doesn't ruin the entire operation.
Right.
Where at this point in time, like today, if one employee of mine at that company did leave, it would blow up the entire operation basically. Like either blow up the entire operation or I just have to start doing 7 days a week there, which I don't. Then I
Right.
neglect away from the other business and then it is what it is.
It's dominoes, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess like the real answer is hire somebody and get them training with these people before we lose, before they want to retire
Mm.
because they have the expertise. But then we're back to okay, well now I'm paying two employees to do one job because I need somebody else
Right.
to learn, right? So it's this kind of mid-sized businesses where it's like, all my businesses are doing between 250 and 600,000 a year. So that's I get like it's all relative, but like that for
And,
me that's a pretty small, mid-sized, whatever business. For
and
these businesses, it's difficult to have like build systems that just run themselves because it's like there's not enough meat on the bones to like take off, right? There's not enough free cash flow to hire redundant
right.
employees to make sure that everything goes smoothly. Um, so it's like it's funny because like I've through like connecting on Twitter, I've met a few people that are like, either acquire businesses like I do, or they're like, there's one guy that's like a lawyer who represents small business when they do acquisitions and stuff like that, right? So I've started talking within this kind of community, and a
Right.
lot of them have been telling me like you got to look at like 1.5 million is around the size you should be looking because those businesses are large enough that they have dedicated managers and teams and systems in
Right.
place that if you take one person out you can replace them with another person and the system kind of takes
Right.
care of itself.
So
Yeah.
from my experience on that end, because in my business one, I do consulting in large businesses, and from what I've seen, this is a struggle of big business as well. You never have redundancy. Somebody leaves on vacation, stuff just doesn't get done, waits until they're coming back. It's really a reality of everywhere. There's like you try to have backups for stuff, but you never really do get to the phase because there's always something else to tackle in a business. And even for large businesses, it is the case. The difference with a large business versus a small one is that like if you lose your employee, well, he's doing all the work, he's generating all the revenue. It becomes critical. Whereas like in a large business, you lose someone that does some key thing, the business is going to slow down a bit in like one thing, but at the end of the day, like on their financials, it's probably going to look like a rounding error anyways. So the impact of like one employee being such a big organization is a lot smaller. Not to diminish what people are doing, because like, the collective of what every little person does as part of an organization put together like creates this huge drive and huge momentum in big business, which gives them like their big edge that they have. But uh in terms of a small business, like you don't have that flexibility because if one cog stops turning, it's a much bigger disturbance to the system.
Well, yeah, it's all relative, right? Because like think about like my all my businesses. If one person leaves, that's between 25 to 50% of my workforce walking
Right.
out, right? So, so like take if
Yeah.
50% of the workforce of a big business of Apple walked out, the business would probably implode as well. So if one
Right.
person, which is 25 to 50% of my workforce, walks out, it's
Mhm.
the same thing, right? So yeah, that's
Right.
that's definitely something I've been thinking a lot about,
Mhm.
where like the simple answer is just sell more and get bigger, so I'll work on that part.
Right.
But also it's like, yeah, it's hard. I don't know. I don't want to be like the boomer that's like, oh, millennials don't, or Gen Z doesn't want to work anymore. But like I definitely find it more difficult to hold down younger employees,
Mhm.
for they either don't put in as much effort or don't care about the business at all. Or like what I've seen as well is like they get new jobs and they go to back to school, and they, like every couple of years they kind of make a major change,
Mhm.
in their lives, where like I guess that's just the thing, is like people don't have careers like they do anymore. People don't get
Right.
a job and work there for 45 years anymore. That's just not how the system works and is
It's
set up.
it's not even how you get rewarded by companies anymore. Because back in the day, like, you had your progression, and I still see certain companies like my wife's lucky enough to be in a company that really values their employees in a big business. I won't name them, but in most big business, like you people generally quit the manager because the manager is what blocks them from having any kind of progression. And usually that comes from there being a lack of culture and a very political dynamic where there's power struggles within the company, or certain people want to move up, and you need to be on the right side. And a lot of people don't, especially our generation, they just want to earn their income, go home, and like dealing with that power dynamics, political stuff from like the office. And I say political stuff in the office, but sometimes it's just like you can be on a team of everyone has diverging opinions and you still have to work as a team. And these things make it hard for people, and people, it's easier to be like, hey, the grass looks greener there, so I'll just quit here and go there. And then you're on your honeymoon phase for like 6 months or whatever. And hey, there's problems like everywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, my I won't be too specific, but a friend of mine worked for a relatively large, like publicly listed company in Canada here, and they ended up quitting because they were, kind of climbing the ranks or whatever, and then they got called into an office from like the vice president, and they said, hey, we'd really love to promote you again, but your boss is older than you, and that wouldn't look good if we promoted you past your manager there. So you need to stay in that position until he retires, and then we can kind of move you up. And then it's like, what do you
Right.
talk like? So it's like you're not even rewarding anything. It's just
Mm.
seniority. It's just, oh, they were here longer than me, so they get, so it's like I think a lot of big businesses,
Right.
that's how they're kind of structured, where it's like this kind of,
Yeah.
old boys club or whatever, and it's like how
And
it's not
then,
rewarding for an employee.
and also like the boomers are working longer than expected. They're
Yeah.
not retiring as much. So like, even especially like in unionized works locations where it goes about seniority, like the young people just feel stuck, right? Because it's like, I want to progress, but there's no room for me to progress. And, if there's cuts, I'm the first one out
Yeah.
because seniority, even though like the boomer is going to retire in, 5 years or whatever, if they decide to retire. So it's hard for the younger workforce to find their place in the current workforce, and the companies are not as loyal as they used to be, or at least the impression that people had of loyalty that's not there. Because it's really rare. I think I heard of like one story of one company where the owner was like, "Hey, everyone, we're all taking pay cuts, including myself, because the times are tough right now. We're going back to normal as soon as things settle down. But for now, please bear with us. And it's like there's going to be no layoffs, no nothing. Like, what's the first thing that big companies usually do, right? They don't do that. They'll be like, hey, the numbers aren't looking good. We need to cut people.
Yeah. And like I've always, cut my salary before I would ever think about cutting an employee's. Like last month I didn't take a paycheck from any of my businesses just because the winery, business number one as I affectionately call her, is very seasonal, so I do 75% of my income is between May long weekend and September long weekend, and then the month of December. So that's basically where all my income comes from. So Q1 is always garbage because dry January and people are broke from the holidays, and
Right.
it's I live in a city that gets to minus 50 degrees Celsius, and people don't like to go outside and do stuff, and it is what it is. So my
Yeah.
Q1 is always very, very slow. But like January, I kind of like we make a ton of money at Christmas, and then we kind of coast on that money, and then it like slowly goes down until it starts getting warmer again. So like March, April is like super bad because it's like still slow, but I ran out of money. So last month we couldn't take a paycheck, but who got paid first is my employees, then my rent. Those were the first two
Yeah.
things I pay. And then we talk about, okay, if there's money left over, we can pay some suppliers, or maybe they have to wait a month, whatever. If there's money left over, we can pay this. But it's like it's like employees and rent get paid first, no matter what, for me at least, because I need my people and I care about my people, and I need somewhere to operate the business. And
Obviously.
everything else is comes second to that usually. But I'm not firing people because we need more money.
But imagine if you operated your business like, on a purely functional thing, and it's like, okay, so my busy season is coming. I'm gonna hire more. So you hire like a second person to help or whatever. And it's like, oh, okay, now it's dead season. Okay, well, layoffs because, we don't need people. And then, oh, let's hire again. So instead of like keeping people on payroll, you'd be like, always hiring someone new just to be pure grunt work, and then you fire them. Obviously, it's not what you're doing because, you care about the humans behind, but, you know, it's not like this does not exist in businesses, and I don't feel like that's a proper way to operate a business,
Yeah, the only
even if it makes sense financially.
the only time I lay off people is like when I have open communication with them. And there's been like times where we lay off somebody in the slow season because they were going to school anyway, and it's like, hey,
Mhm.
do you want two shifts a week, or and then we have a conversation where they're like, you know what, no, I'll just focus on school, and then it's whatever, and then they come back in the busy season. So it's like that's
Yeah,
but like a startup obviously is different than like a big company, and where they just, you gotta email one day that's like, oh, sorry, your team's access is revoked, and get your shit out of the office and go, right?
yeah,
Like, so yeah, I don't know, it's also like I found it, I don't like, definitely different, I don't know if difficult, but like definitely different, that like getting employees that want to work at a startup versus a
right,
established company, because obviously a big company you have more established roles, here's your job, you do this. But like at a startup, you're kind of doing everything. Like you need a little bit, you have your role you're hired for, but there's
right,
going to be days where it's like you need to help do this because it needs to get done, and we have five of us on the team and we all need to do it.
right.
So it's definitely, so I'm like, I'm finding one in every five employees at the startup over the last 10 years has been like really good and stayed with us. So then
Mhm.
slowly you build the foundation
You're building,
of people. And then actually,
and
like a couple people that work, or like one full time that works at my startup actually works part time at my other company now.
okay.
So like kind of just under the Willows umbrella here, I can.
So you're kind of pulling a bit of an Elon where he takes his key resources from one company, brings them to another, and like
Yeah, I could.
it's like, hey, I here.
Elon's copying me, I think.
Yeah, 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 definitely, definitely. You know, after retweeting one of your things or replying to one of your things, he's like, hey, this guy knows what he's doing. I'm gonna do what he does.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say also, like, I don't know how you went, for example, like how you decided, why you decided to build, your first company from scratch, and everything. But for example, like us with the soaps, it all started like we were just three guys, we were friends, we were doing certain things together, maybe doing a few IT contracts together as well. And we we were basically doing marketing and branding for smaller businesses. And at some point, one of our partners starts making soap for himself because he has sensitive skin. And, we saw the soap, we looked at the market, and we started seeing like, hey, there's a lot of junk in the products, right? And it's like, if you have sensitive skin and you need this, there's probably a lot of people who actually need this too. And so we built a brand. Took about a year to convince him to like launch it. And then we launched it like last summer. But if I go back to like the topic of us hiring our first employee for whenever that happens, you know, there's this whole mission about like, caring about people with sensitive skin, building, making and producing good products with quality ingredients. So it's like the first person that we're aiming to find is probably somebody that's going to be in line with our mission, right? And what we love and what we put out there. And, you know, even when I talk to friends, I find myself like explaining my business, and it's like it's to me it starts sounding like the sales pitch because it's the exact same thing I'm telling like a potential customer. So my speech to a friend or to a customer stays the exact same. And so that's where I feel like, you know, it kind of relates to like your mission and what you're trying to accomplish and your overall like how you express your company as. So I find that like the employees you're gonna find, obviously there's people who just want a salary and you're gonna go through those, but there's gonna be people who really care about the mission and who are passionate about it. And I feel like those people are like really, really key. And if you can find them early on, it's amazing to have them. So I don't know if you like from your experience if you can maybe add to that.
Yeah, I mean it's difficult, but when lightning strikes, it's a very good feeling. I have a couple people on the team that are very passionate about the mission, as you say, and like care about. I don't want to put. I don't know what they're actually thinking, but just based on their behavior, care about me and my mission as well. And that's taken a long time to get. Like I've had to, fire a few employees that actively sabotage the brand and were bad representatives of it over the years, which sucks. Like hiring and firing employees is my least favorite thing, a part of the
Right.
business. I just want to make stuff and sell it. That's all I want to do. And unfortunately, if I could do that all myself, I would. But unfortunately, I need more of a team. But after you find somebody that actually cares and you can, there's you can tell your intuition. You can tell between somebody that pretends to care and somebody that actually cares. And when you actually find an employee that cares about you and the mission and the company, it's a great feeling. And now I feel bad that I can't reward them more. You know what I mean? I wish I could pay them
Right.
more. And like because that's and I think I believe that I will be able to like build a good foundation with the people that I have, and then yeah, I guess there's like a layer of employees. You get the people that just show up for a paycheck. You get the people that like care about you, but like they're not gonna go above and beyond. And then you get the people that like actually are like maybe if not as passionate as you, like very close. Um, and I talk with my friend a lot about like how a lot of entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs are actually would be the best number two in a company or the best number five in a
Right.
company, and they try to be entrepreneurs and they fail, and it's just not but they think they need to because of whatever, because of YouTube videos or, X, or they have influences, whatever. They think they need to be this like entrepreneur, but they would actually be the best consigliere or the best right hand man or the best, like head of a division of marketing, right? That's actually what they're good at, but they want to become an entrepreneur because I think, I guess it varies for everybody, but I think a lot of them, they don't feel appreciated as a number two or a number five or whatever. So one of my goals with employees is to just like make them feel appreciated, so that the people that have that passion for stuff and the skill to be in that position will want to work for me and come out of the woodwork. And yeah, I don't know. It's definitely difficult, especially when like I kind of just have my head down and working so much. I mean, I went down I was doing 120 hours a week there for the entirety of March, but I'm down to 100 now. So now we're relaxing. Only 16 hours a day is it's not too bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, did you have any other questions? We're coming up on an hour here, so I don't know if you have any.
Yeah. Yeah. No, maybe if you can like for myself and the audience, maybe give us a bit of the backstory of your first business and like also what got you into acquiring like a completely different style of business afterwards.
Yeah, so my first business, my startup business number one is a winery. So we're a wine manufacturer mainly. But we also have a vineyard where we grow our grapes in a region where you can't really grow grapes. So that's been a challenge, but a very rewarding challenge. We basically work with a university that they develop like cold hardy hybrid grapes. So they're like grapes you wouldn't see out and about. Even some of them that we grow are like experimental grape 52689 because like the strain hasn't been named yet. So we experiment with different kind of grapes, and then we grow fruits as well, sour cherries, strawberries, rhubarb, raspberries, stuff like that. So and then we pick the fruits, we make the wines, we sell the wines. So we're in retail, liquor stores, and then we have our own store as well. And then I've had a restaurant tasting room for the last like 5 or 6 years, but the last year we opened like a much larger one. So we opened a 100-seat restaurant,
And
basically.
so why wine?
I like getting drunk. So basically, I got booted out of my parents' house right when I turned 18.
Okay.
And I moved into a house that I rented with like 5 other 18-year-olds. So I'm sure you can imagine a lot of people in and
Mhm.
out, and a lot of partying and whatnot. And I didn't have a job, so my current business partner, and I started making wine in the basement of the trap house that we rented. And then we would, we're making jugs of wine, so we were sharing it with the people coming over. And I remember this like super vividly, this moment where it was like clicked in my brain. This would have been 2014 when I was 18. My friend came over and he used to, bring a 24 pack of beer or whatever every time he came over. And he walked in empty handed one day. And I go, something along the lines of like, "Oh, you're not drinking today, or you didn't bring beer, whatever." And he's like, "Well, I'll just drink your stuff. It's way better." And it's like,
All right.
wait a second here. So then I didn't, that was also like around the time where, my parents had paid for everything. I grew up like, middle class. So my parents had paid for everything before that. So, now I'm like, wait, a cell phone is how much a month? And a car is how much,
Right.
car insurance? And I'm like, what do you mean cheese is $17 a block? Like, so I'm like, oh yeah, bills. So I was also like looking at a thing. It was like, okay, well, I either start a business or I get a job. So it's like, okay, what business are we going to start? And then this was the moment where I was like, oh, apparently we're good at something, which is making wine. And then so we're like, okay, if we wanted to start a wine business, how would we go about it? and we Google it, and just this is a complete coincidence, whatever universe, whatever you believe in, that so we have a government regulated monopoly on alcohol in this province where I live. So you can't you can't have a liquor store. All the liquor stores are owned by the government. It's very difficult to get a license to manufacture alcohol. Now this was pre 2014. So we Google it, and literally like in the news right now this month there's been a bunch of deregulation where like 16 licenses, they voted to become 3 licenses, and it became easier to become a liquor manufacturer at the exact same time that we're like, maybe we should become a liquor manufacturer. How does that work? So it's just like this like weird, everything lined up kind of thing. So we started writing the business plan that year, finished it late 2014, early 2015. And then getting money for the operation was obviously difficult. When you walk into a bank, you say, hey, I've never had a job before. I've never run a business. I have no credit history. I have no assets. And I want to start a business about getting drunk, is what they hear. A little bit difficult to get funding.
As an 18-year-old, like, hey, I want to make alcohol.
Yeah, yeah. So we were not taken very seriously at banks and credit unions. We went to basically everyone we could get a meeting with. The shortest one, we didn't even sit down. They just like walked into their office, and as we were walking, we told them, and then he looks at us. He's like, I'm going to be honest with you. I can't help you. We're like, okay. So we eventually partnered up with a company here in Canada called Futurepreneur. So basically they're a government funded organization that, deals with like under 29 entrepreneurs. Like that's their whole mandate, is to like help resources and money to young entrepreneurs. So what they do is they basically, like, you still get the business loan, but they come in and they say, okay, if they don't pay it, we'll pay it. So they like guarantee the loan for you. So then a bank is more likely to give you the money. So we went through that program, and we got like, I think something $15,000 or something from them. So all said and done, between like loans, friend contributions, whatever, all the savings that we could get together, we started the winery for less than $50,000, which, if you know anything about manufacturing, is not a lot of money. I remember I told that story to a guy who owns a brewery here, and we were in the bar, so it was loud. It was like music playing, and he's like, 500,000? That's pretty good. That's less than I spent. And I'm like, no. Drop a zero, 50.
Drop a zero. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, what?
Not a lot.
Yeah, not a lot at all. But we basically started with like homebrew equipment, like commercially, is basically what we started with, just, for making wine at home. And then we spent 11-12 months trying to get like permitting and all that stuff, but I was paying rent in the building while we were trying to get these permits, so it's like that was my entire startup capital. So when we opened January the 27th of 2017, we didn't have enough money to pay rent in 4 days at the end of the month, and then so I just got out there and sold enough to pay the bills at the end of the month, and then started fresh the next month, and then had to sell enough to pay bills at the end of the month. And then we just kept doing that until, still right now, I don't have enough money to pay bills at the end of the month. So I still have to spend to sell enough. So yeah, but it's been fun. But I always tell people, like, whenever you see me say like, oh, I started my startup for $25, that was the money that my business partner and I put in. We each pitched $25 to buy like a home.
Your shares.
Yeah, basically. So I put in $25, he put in $25. That was the only money we ever put in of our own money into the operation. And then we did just over 400,000 last year in sales, and it just awesome. 8 years in January that just passed. So it's something. Very difficult to make money in the liquor industry here, though, just because of how the aforementioned public liquor works with the monopoly with the government. We have to pay them every single bottle we sell, no matter if it's through their stores or through my store, whatever, it doesn't matter. I have to pay them, and it ends up being a lot. It's about half my money that we make needs to be paid in liquor taxes between provincial and federal levels. So it's very difficult to make a good living let's say, in
Mhm.
in the liquor industry here. So that kind of led me, and I was only working, 80 hours a week there, so I was like on board. There's nothing to do. So in 2023, or I guess maybe late 2022, we started looking into a side hustle, I guess you could say. Because like I'm just interested in business, and I think like keeping your finger on the pulse of like the businesses locally in your area is smart. Like just know what businesses are selling for, know what businesses are doing in sales, and it kind of gives you a frame of reference for what you're doing. So anytime something vaguely interesting would come across my desk, like I'd see an ad for a business being sold or whatever, um, probably 10 times a year I would like ask to see people's books and like sign an NDA and look at their just to see if I was interested or whatever. So I had done that probably 6 or 7 times until I came across the stamp company that I ended up buying. And it was funny because like I actually had sent it to my business partner originally to like laugh at them because I'm like, oh, this is a company that's been around for 93 years and they didn't profit anything last year. Isn't that funny? Like they did $200,000 in sales, but they profited $0. I'm like, this is like, what is this? And then he, who has a much better analytical and numbers mind, when he read through it, he's like, no, 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 wait, look at this. They're actually profiting like 100,000 on 200,000, but they're paying it all out as salary at the end, which is dumb for tax reasons, but that's neither here nor there. So it was actually a business that was like 93 years old that was profiting like 50% net, which is a lot.
Nice.
Because I come from my liquor company that profits like 6% net, for instance.
Yeah.
This was like, oh, those are some numbers, for instance. And so yeah, we went by there. We kind of toured it. We met the people, saw the processes, and the numbers made sense. So we ended up acquiring them June 2023. I closed on that. It was $110,000 for the business, but we did like 250,000 in sales the first year. So it was a
All right.
good. It was good. Um, but this was like, and I tweeted about all my kind of struggles. Is like I've had 3 managers I've gone through at that company, and it's just been very difficult to like hire somebody to do the job of an entrepreneur, which is what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And I guess I was more naive. I know this was only 2 years ago, but I was naive in thinking that I could find somebody relatively easily that like has my same mentality. So after I lost the third manager, I said, screw this, I'm doing it myself. And I just started being there 5 days a week. And I learned everything and I just did it myself. And then that, doing it myself and being there every day, there's only 2 stamp companies in my province. The other one, we outsourced a bunch of stuff to each other. So like anything that I didn't have the equipment to make, I would send to him, and anything that he didn't have the equipment to make, he would send to me. Because we had 2 different processes in making the things. And he started, the owner of the other company started seeing me there every day, and we got acquainted. And then one day he just goes like, I'm 75 and kind of want to retire, and basically, so we started talking about talking about that, and then yeah, we just closed the deal 20 days ago. We inked it
Yeah.
together, and I combined the 2 companies into one building. So I knocked off like 60, $70,000 of rent right on day one. Um,
Right. And from the numbers you shared, the second business that you just acquired, by the way, congratulations.
Thank you.
It looks like the numbers are very, very interesting, at least based on how you managed to purchase it as well.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm working on a thread to kind of break all that down in very good detail. But yes, basically, I did not put much money down. I vendor took back vendor. Basically, I revert like mortgage the company from the owner, where I pay him monthly for the company instead of a big
Right.
money down.
Okay, basically what they call what a lot of people call seller financing, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, seller financing, vendor take back, I think is technically the
Okay.
whatever. That's the term my lawyers put in the contract. But yeah, seller financing, where I basically buy the inventory from him, inventory and equipment value, and then the goodwill, the brand, that stuff, I pay over the next 8 years. It was,
Okay.
and then that works for the person I bought it from because they're old and they're been self-employed for their entire lives, so they don't get a pension.
Right.
So me paying them monthly is almost like a pension, and it's less tax liability than just me paying them
A bulk.
up front.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, so it's kind of a win-win. With that business was about double the size of my first stamp company. Um, so my other one I bought for 110,000 and they did like 250 the first year. This one I bought for 250,000 and they did like 550 last year. A little bit of that will decrease because some of their income came from me outsourcing to them, which I don't do anymore. Like
Right.
about $40,000 a year came from that. So obviously that goes away. But then I cut. We figure about $80,000 of overhead off the top,
Right.
day one, and then we're also like working on um, modernizing processes and getting, now we're buying, the two companies buy as a whole, we're getting better deals on supplies and whatnot because you can buy more bulk, and so it makes
So
sense.
your cost structure becomes better out of it.
Yeah, exactly that, and more efficient because batching more stuff, and yeah, it's so it made sense. It wasn't something that I wanted to do this early after my other acquisition, if I'm being completely honest, because I did take a loan for the other business
Right.
for most of it. Um, so I kind of wanted to like pay that off, learn the ring, learn everything more, get more experience in it, and then actually find a good manager that can like manage it for me. That's what I wanted to do before I expanded it, but opportunity presents itself. You gotta take it,
Yeah.
right?
And I think you'll be very happy with it a few years from now.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope so. But it's yeah. So this will make my stamp companies. I'm keeping the brands separate, so that's
Yeah.
that's why they're still. I call them business number two and business number three, even though they're in the same building. But that'll make the stamp companies probably do between 700 and 800,000 this year, and then with my winery doing like 400, that'll put me over $1 million for next year, which is I know arbitrary numbers, obviously, but it is something.
It is a big number, and yeah, it's really gonna be special to see like those huge numbers like come in, but at the same time, those a good chunk of those huge numbers like just simply go out and like
I don't know where
evaporate.
my money goes, man. I look at the I'm like, I made $1 million. Where the hell did that money go? Like it goes out as fast as it comes in, which is
Yeah.
sometimes faster, which is a problem, but it is what it is. But yeah, so I think like I've talked at length where on Twitter where I'm kind of like trying to figure out, you know, what I want to do with my life, which I guess sounds kind of weird at 29 with three businesses, but like I think this is the direction I want to go, where I want to be like a Brookfield or be like a Exchange Income Corp, where I'm like acquiring businesses and bringing them in the fold, and or even like Berkshire, like
Yeah,
15
I
years
love that
ago.
model.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's yeah, I think that's kind of where I want to take my career. So this is because eventually I'm going to put myself in a situation where I can't run all the businesses anymore, like physically. So that same,
Well, I'd say you're almost there, right?
yeah,
With
yeah. So like
you
that same callback where it's like I hired my first employee at my first business when I physically couldn't be in two places at once. That's gonna history's gonna repeat itself here, where it's like I'm gonna have to start getting operators and managers because I just physically there's too much work to be done in a day.
and and there's also one thing that I really love, like of the Berkshire structure. is that like the parent company Berkshire actually takes the profits and is able to, redistribute it where it needs to be, like whether it's an acquisition of something, whether one of the businesses is trying to expand and needs more cash flows and stuff like that. So it gives you this flexibility cross businesses as well.
Yeah, and even like
So I find that
before
interesting.
before we bought the third company, we had the second company send my first company money in the slow season. So
Right.
like we're already starting to do that. Haven't been able to do it recently because we had to save up money from cash flow to the down payment and all that. But yeah, so yeah, like flexibility, I think is a great word for it because it's like if you're one company, the only opportunity you have to earn extra revenue streams is like, spending a lot of money. Obviously, it's like either new product line or new opening a restaurant when you didn't have a restaurant before, or like whatever.
Mhm.
But when you have multiple businesses under the kind of the same umbrella, there's a lot more opportunity to, you know, yeah, a little bit of leniency there, which is nice. It's comforting.
Awesome.
Okay, well, I guess we're
I think we covered a lot.
we did cover a lot. I know sometimes I just start ranting and but
Uh,
get me talking about myself, and that's what's the from The Incredibles where he's like, "Oh, you got me monologuing." But
I love these discussions because it's like you actually get and that's what I wanted to experiment because this is actually the first podcast I'm recording. And I always wanted to do something like business related, and I'm like, yeah, but uh, gotta record it nicely and everything. I gave myself, all the excuses of why not to do it.
yeah,
And then we had this discussion like in X, and I'm like, okay, well, you know what? It's a perfect opportunity. Let's just do it and see how it goes.
yeah. That's what I've been trying to do more. Like previously, I had this mentality that I'm like everything needs to be like a show and have a brand, and it needs to be like this. But what I've been doing recently is just like when I'm exactly what you did, where I just have an interesting conversation and then I'm like, yeah, let's jump on and talk more about this. And I think it's like,
Yeah,
I mean, you guys can tell me, but I think it's good content.
yeah, I think so. Well, hey, you guys tell us, right?
Yeah, that's yeah, exactly. All right, well, do you want to give some shout outs here for yourself to where people can find you?
So like my profile says, like I'm purely Montreal based. Currently we're operating mostly online. So hey, if you have sensitive skin, especially like eczema, stuff like that, Canadian winters can be really, really rough. So even dry skin, look at our soaps. It's basically olive oil, coconut oil, and the hydroxide that helps us turn those oils into soaps, and that's pretty much it. So,
What's the website?
it's called sepsoaps.com. It's in my bio on my profile now because, I thought it would be a good idea to put it in there. So you guys can go check it out there.
And your X handle?
My X handle is Adrian's Viewpoint. So it's pretty simple and straightforward.
There you go. You can follow me, finance, business stuff, drunk dividends on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Vote Willows, VOTEWILLOWS on everything else. If you want some wine, shrugdoc, SHRUGDOC.com. If you need some stamps, Maple Leaf Rubber Stamp or Canmark Industries, either of those. Subscribe, comment, whatever else you need, whatever else you want to do.
Yeah.
Good.
And hey, guys, join us in conversations, right? We always love hearing from you all.
We're both pretty notoriously active on X. I got to get that $11 payout, so I'm always furiously replying to people. So if you want to join a conversation, I'd love to have it.
I'm nowhere near that 500 verified users.
That was easier for me than the 5 million
Yeah. Uh,
impressions.
the 5 million impressions, like I never really tried to go for it because, if you just go troll people on X,
That's what I
you're
was.
gonna
Yeah,
make it.
that's what
Yeah,
I did.
but they switched it from 500 followers to 500 verified.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't see my following drop. I see the same people are still there. except that people have been dropping their account verification because at first it used to be ad based, right? So now people are giving up on the program, and it's like the pool's getting smaller, so more people are dropping. It's like if I have one message to people, it's like just hey, look, we're here talking. We met over X. It's not just about getting like that, $10 from the payouts, because that's not how you're gonna make your money. And those people you see making $3,000 a month or whatever, I guarantee you, they already have their audience. They built themselves. They have their businesses. They have their careers. That's just like an actual thing that they're doing, and they have their audience. They they don't need the money from the X creator program, right? So don't try to make it your primary thing. Build yourself, build stuff, have wonderful conversations. You can meet great people, and forget about the creator program.
That $30 a month from X was the only income I made last month. So, oh, I guess
Yeah.
dividends too. I have some dividend stocks. Anyway, thank you for listening,
Anyways, thank you.
everybody. I appreciate the watching us, listening to us. We'll see you again soon.